Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's webinar, Dental Insurance 101, Why Understanding Insurance Matters. I am Chris Okowski. I'm ASDA's Business Development Manager, and we're glad you've joined us as we have a very informative and interactive presentation planned for you. During the presentation, we encourage you to submit questions via the Q&A feature. Our presenters are eager to answer your questions and help you understand more about insurance models, choosing a network for your practice, and more. We'd like to thank Humana as the sponsor of tonight's programming and for their support of ASDA. I would now like to introduce our presenters from Humana, Becky Benincasa, Jennifer Benkarowski, and Michelle Hart. Becky Benincasa has worked in the healthcare industry for 25 years, with 15 of that in dental. She started out as a compliance manager and then moved to provider relations, network recruiting management, and contracting. Becky has held her position at Humana for the past 4 years and manages a team that supports network expansion efforts for Humana's growing clients, employees, and individual members. Jennifer Benkarowski has served in the dental industry for over 30 years and has a degree in communication sciences with a focus on speech pathology and audiology. The last 25 years, she has worked building and retaining dental provider networks, as well as managing teams of provider contracting specialists for various carriers. Jennifer has been with Humana for over 4 years and is responsible for network expansion, collaboration with group efforts, and Medicare teams, as well as identifying potential partnerships that add value to the member and provider experience. Michelle Hart has over 35 years of experience in the dental industry, starting in the clinical practice setting as a registered dental hygienist before expanding her education and entering the payer side. She has served in capacities including professional relations, network expansion, recruiter, quality management, and credentialing. Michelle has been in her current role as Associate Vice President, Dental Networks with Humana for the past 7 years, where her responsibilities include dental network expansion, retention, and credentialing compliance. We welcome Becky, Jennifer, and Michelle.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you so much for the opportunity to be here and to host this webinar. So before we dive into this data, we wanted to learn a little bit about the audience. So we have some questions in the form of a poll. And so why don't we just dive right in and start with the first poll. What year are you in dental school? And do we have the results from that poll? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Oh.
So we have just about 40% are D3, and then D4. That's perfect. That's going to really be the information that we're going to provide today is going to be very meaningful. And then D2 and D1. Excellent. All right. The next question. What are your plans after dental school? Let's see what you are planning to go into. Let's see what these results are. Oh, private practice. That's fantastic. DSO, still deciding. Yes. Public health, military. That's fantastic. I love to see the public health. I'm actually in Kansas City today because we were volunteering at a Team Smile event. So I love to see that. All right. And let's see. Let's go on to the next poll. How confident do you feel about understanding dental insurance? All right, let's see. All right, that's why we're here today. Excellent. I hope that when we're done here that you're a lot more confident. That's wonderful. And I think we have one more poll, which is what is your biggest concern? All right, let's see. Okay, kind of across the board. So choosing the right networks, understanding plan types, getting paid and coverage and how to talk to patients about coverage. So definitely a wide range, which is fantastic. What you're going to find today is that we're going to talk about all of those things. And in order to get started, I'm actually going to turn it over to Jennifer. So Jennifer, you're going to, I think, jump right in with understanding why insurance matters.
I sure am. And those 6% that are very confident, I am confident you're going to learn something new tonight. And for those who are not very confident, this is your time. We've got a lot of good information for you. So we'll jump right in. So, why does insurance matter when your main objective is to be a clinician? When we talk about dental insurance, it's really easy to focus on just the business aspect of it. What do you get paid? How do you join a network? Can it actually help you grow your practice? The reality is, as a future healthcare provider, understanding how insurance works is also critical for patient health. Understanding how insurance works is crucial for ensuring patients receive the care they need without unnecessary financial barriers. Both the practical nature of insurance coverage, like understanding coverage and plan types, and the health outcomes that are tied to it, make understanding dental insurance a really important part of your future. So, people with dental insurance are significantly more likely to go to the dentist for both routine and emergency care. Those with dental benefits tend to catch problems earlier. On the contrary, individuals without dental benefits are more likely to have, you guessed it, extractions, dentures, and they're less likely to receive restorative care or even treatment for gum disease. Those without dental benefits often report higher incidences of other illnesses. I'm sure none of you are surprised by this statement, given the strong link between oral healthcare and overall wellness. Higher incidences of heart disease, osteoporosis, and diabetes are actually quite common in those without dental insurance. So next slide, aside from the patient health benefits of having insurance, being a provider in a dental network can also help you attract and retain patients. Knowing the dentist goes through a rigorous and stringent process to become in network can build patient trust right off the bat, which can really improve their overall experience. Participating with insurance networks ensures that the office complies with insurance regulations. It can add financial stability, and it can lead to more accurate billing and faster reimbursement. Interestingly enough, a recent Humana survey found that 72% of those with dental insurance are influenced by in-network availability when choosing a dental provider. 46% report this to be a major influence. So let's put that into everyday terms. So let's say I'm in the business of selling cars, right? And a poll says 50% of people said that having a navigation system was a major influence in their car purchase. So I bet most car companies would make sure they put navigation systems in the majority of their cars. So just a little correlation there, because we're not unfamiliar with insurance as a whole, right? Most of us are paying for auto insurance, home insurance, medical insurance. So I always like to make analogies back to what we understand in our everyday lives. So 46%, almost half of the poll takers, report being a network to be a major influence. Even though it's healthcare, you are still selling a service, and it's really important to understand the consumer. So as we move on, we're going to dive into details. You can move to the next slide, Cindy. Before we dive into the details, really, I want you to feel more comfortable with some of the basic terms you'll hear in your everyday work. So we can move on and talk about network. So what is a network? A network is a group of dentists who have agreed to receive a reduced payment, also referred to as an agreed upon fee or a contracted rate. We really use those terms interchangeably. As part of a network, you are marketed to the plan's members. Well, what does that really mean, right? When you join a network, you appear on the provider directory located on the carrier website, and sometimes often on the employer group website when they have a directory link on their own site. So today there are even apps where people can punch in their zip code while they're sitting in the car or on their lunch break and scroll through in-network providers to find an in-network with dentist that takes their plan with a few clicks. So this marketing that we're talking about can really be more cost effective than traditional methods when you consider cost to advertise on a billboard, local media, or even in community magazines and coupon books. Everyone knows those Valpak coupon books keep coming every day and they find you, right? And there are always, especially where I am in Tampa, guaranteed to have at least 5 dentists paying to have their office marketed in there. So it is a really convenient way to reduce the traditional marketing costs that you have. So those with dental insurance are recommended by their employee benefits team to seek care from an in-network dentist. Why? Going in-network maximizes a patient's benefit and it reduces out-of-pocket costs. So the next term is premium. Premium is the amount paid to an insurance company for insurance coverage. Premiums are typically monthly and can be paid by the individual or business they work for. It's most common that dental and medical insurance premiums are paid by a combination of both the patient and their employer, and it's typically deducted from their paycheck. So we can move on to deductible. What is a deductible? The amount a patient pays out of pocket before the plan starts covering services. Not all dental plans have deductibles, but many PPOs do. And of course, they reset each year. So we've got another car scenario, right? You choose maybe $1,000 deductible for your car insurance. If you have an accident, you are responsible for paying that deductible before the rest of your coverage kicks in. So a copayment typically refers to a fixed dollar amount that the patient pays for specific procedure codes at the time of service. Copayments, which you'll hear me mention later, are more common in DHMO plans. Co-insurance. Co-insurances are a percentage that the patient pays after the deductible has been met. So for example, if you've met your deductible, let's say you have a $50 deductible, you've met your deductible, and now you're having a filling, and that's considered a basic service, and perhaps you have a plan chosen by your employer where there's 80% coverage. So that 20% that the patient will owe is called co-insurance. So moving on, we've got some more terms for you to get familiar with. Coverage, limits, and maximums. So the maximum is just what it sounds like. The maximum amount an insurance carrier will pay per year. Typical annual maximums for dental insurance range from $1,000 to $2,000. I know I'm the second of 4 kids when dental insurance wasn't even a thing when we were growing up. And as it became a benefit to my own parents, there was, maybe $750 is the max, $1,000 is the max. I saw a plan for a school district just today that had a $2,500 max. So this is the second most frequently used benefit to medical. and changes happen all the time, like increasing that max. So some carriers actually now offer plans with a rollover benefit where you can use what's left that you didn't use the year before. And then even more popular right now is an extended max, so that if you hit your maximum, you still have coverage if you need to continue treatment rather than waiting until the following year. So we're always trying to, sort of bridge the gap to help the member and bridge that gap between the insurance company and the member and dental office. Some plans have waiting periods before benefits kick in. Some patients may have to wait 6 months, 12 months, and these waiting periods vary by employer group and by plan type. So moving on to dental insurance plan basics. Dental insurance, it can certainly feel confusing, but fortunately, most plans fall into a handful of categories that we're going to go over. The key is knowing how each plan works, what your reimbursement structure looks like, and how insurance actually impacts patient choice. So moving on to types of dental plans. A PPO stands for Preferred Provider Organization. It is the most common plan. About 86% of commercial plans fall into this category. So in a PPO network, the dentists are contracted at a discounted rate and becomes part of the network. So patients with these plans can see an out-of-network dentist, but benefits may be lower. Sometimes their coverage levels are in place to drive people in network. For example, an employer group may have basic services covered at 100% if they go in network, but their out-of-network benefit is basic services covered at 80%. So understanding that each plan design from an employer can vary like that is important. And it's equally important for the patient, or what we call the member, to understand their plan and how to maximize that benefit and reduce out of pocket and be able to continue to have treatment. So it used to be that a dentist in a PPO network would honor the contracted rate, even if the service wasn't covered or if a maximum had been reached. But there is now legislation by state that allows dentists to collect their full fee in these situations. So for example, let's say you're in a PPO network and you have an agreed upon fees, but occlusal guards are not covered. Then when a member needs an occlusal guard, that's actually charged at your usual and customary rate, at your normal fee, because it is not part of their benefit. So that's called non-covered services state legislation. And so you'll want to become familiar with the state that you practice in, the different sort of legislative actions that have taken place over the years to help dentists. So on to a DHMO. A DHMO stands for Dental Health Maintenance Organization. Members first choose a primary care dentist to be assigned to. So a dentist gets paid in a DHMO plan a specific dollar amount per member per month, whether or not the member is seen during that time. This per member per month sometimes is referred to as PMPM and is most often referred to as capitation. So DHMO networks get paid in 3 different ways. So I like to look at it as more of a pie chart, right? So you have different sections of where your income comes from with a DHMO plan. One is this per member per month. The second is going to be fixed co-payment. There's that word repeating itself, right, from our terms. A fixed co-payment amount that the members pay by procedure code. So for example, if they have a crown done, the fixed copay amount might be $550. And that, along with capitation and along with what we call supplemental payments, are what make up the total fee reimbursement for a DHMO network. A supplemental payment is typically for major services, crown and bridge, dentures, oral surgeries, where the insurance company actually pays a supplement for those specific procedure codes, in addition to the patient copayment and the capitation that you receive. So keep in mind, a person on a DHMO plan has no out-of-network benefit. So they have to choose an in-network dentist, and they have to be assigned to that dentist. So we refer to it in the business as choosing your PCD, your primary care dentist. This is an extremely common form of medical plan and medical reimbursement. So it is something that has really grown in popularity. So moving along, we're going to talk a little bit about an EPO plan, an exclusive provider organization. So patients must use an in-network provider. So there we go again, right? How does patient choice kind of help you understand, plans and how are they driven? How are patients driven to choose me? So both DHMO and this EPO plan have no out-of-network benefit. So they have to choose an in-network provider. So an EPO is not offered by all carriers. It is a really unique plan, again, growing in popularity. It is a hybrid of a PPO and a DHMO. There's no out-of-network coverage. Dentists are paid on a contracted rate. There's no capitation payment, and the patient doesn't have to be assigned to your office. So again, not all carriers offer this kind of hybrid, but it's really growing in popularity because it helps control costs, but offers more flexibility than a DHMO. So an indemnity plan, we also call a traditional plan. Basically what we'll refer to as fee for service. There's no network at all. I mean, obviously we're hoping you choose a licensed dentist, right? So you go to any dentist. Patients may have to provide payment to the dentist up front before their claim is even submitted. Some offices happily submit claims, but there are occasionally some who will not accept an assignment of benefits. They'll expect payment up front and the member to submit themselves for reimbursement. That's not really a popular setup from the member perspective because they're not in dental insurance, right? So they don't know how really to file a claim. So you can go, this is typically the insurer pays a percentage of that bill according to the plan type. And what the insurance company pays is based on the usual and customary fees for that procedure. So whatever the insurance company pays, the patient is responsible for the balance for a non-network related indemnity or traditional plan. So that's important to understand because the patient typically has a much larger amount that they owe the office. So moving on to our last, well, actually, not quite our last. The discount plan or the dental savings plan, they have also risen in popularity. They're not insurance. They're just access to a network and contracted rate. So a patient would pay maybe a flat yearly rate or a monthly rate to get access to a network, but the patient pays the total amount. There are no claims, there are no deductibles, there are no maximums. So let's keep moving. Two more to discuss here. Besides the standard commercial dental plans, there's a couple other programs that many of you will encounter, especially depending on where your practice is located or the basic population that you serve. Medicare Advantage plans. So these are often confused with Medicaid plans. So I really hope to kind of set the stage so that you can hit the ground running, understanding and spreading the word of how different these two plans are. So Medicare Advantage is a plan that is offered to folks who are 65 and older. Medicare Advantage is also known as Part D. It's a Medicare approved plan from a private insurer that offers an alternative to original Medicare, Parts A and B, which are for hospital and medical coverage, and often Part D prescription drugs as well. So many Medicare Advantage plans have an embedded benefit for dental, vision, hearing. Super important specialties there, right? So they typically use a PPO network. Patients may have in and out of network benefits, or they may only have in-network benefits. This is going to be specific to the Medicare Advantage plan that they have. Medicaid is very different from Medicare. Medicaid is a government-run health insurance for our underserved population, like low income, children, people with disabilities. Dental coverage for those who qualify for Medicare does vary by state. Some plans only cover emergency dental services, while others offer comprehensive benefits for both adults and children. Something important to note for those who are maybe going into a pediatric specialty. Pediatric dental coverage for those covered by Medicaid is required in all states. Medicaid plans also typically require a dentist to be in network. So I have just dumped a lot on you, and I'd like to do a little exercise to get you thinking. So we can move to the next slide, and you're welcome to throw some things in the chat and Q&A, but I want you to kind of absorb all that I just threw at you and imagine you're opening your own dental practice in a city like Philly, Chicago, Dallas. What kinds of insurance plan factors do you think you should start thinking about before signing up for a network?
So add that Jennifer covered a lot with a lot of different terminology. So the Q&A section is there. Like, if you have other questions, like we can see those questions that you asked. So don't forget that that's out there, and that's an opportunity for you. As you're thinking about this question that's on the screen, we are here to answer other questions as you're attending this webinar.
Excellent. Oh, I'm going to give you some things to think about that would help you answer this question if you didn't really have any ideas about it. We can move to the next title slide. Let's talk about how you're going to evaluate plans and see what might work for you. So we can move along here. There's a few major things that you want to think about, right? Especially for those high percentage of folks that are going into private practice. You want to think about your practice demographics, your reimbursement rates, and the insurers, the insurance carriers profile. Those are three key factors. So let's get into some details. Demographics matter. Are you in a rural area, an urban area? What's the average age of the people living in your immediate area of your office? For example, I live in Florida. We are known for our retirement population. So is there heavy volume of retirees near my practice? Might want to consider really looking into one of those Medicare Advantage plans. What are the major employers in the area? Let's say you're opening a practice in Chicago. So Abbott Labs, a famous and major pharmaceutical company, is based there. Kraft Heinz Foods, we all interact with those foods every day. That's a large food and beverage company located in Chicago. Both of these companies have thousands of employees looking for in-network dentists. So who administers their dental benefits? Is it Humana? Is it Aetna? Is it Cigna? That's what we want you to find out. The second key factor is to check the plan's reimbursement rates and the types of plans they offer. So compare different rates across different plans and consider the impact on your practice revenue. So lastly, the last key factor here, folks, is to analyze the insurer's profile. We want you to ask, how many members do you have, right? How many members does that carrier have in your geographical area, in your zip code area, 60-mile radius from your practice? Do they already have a large existing network, or are they trying to build one? What kind of plans do they offer? So for example, if I'm in a heavily populated city with a lot of private employer group business, and I'm looking at a fee schedule, and I think this is great, this is the best one, but they only offer a Medicare Advantage plan, probably not a good fit, right? Because you may love the fee schedule, but you're not going to really see many patients and get paid on that. So Also look for provider and patient satisfaction. This can be found in industry awards, surveys. You're always going to find feedback about companies on patient and provider satisfaction. Keep in mind, the plan you choose or not choose to join can significantly affect your patient flow, your income, and often even your work-life balance. So take the time to evaluate the plan from both the business and the clinical perspective. Thank you so much for listening. I know that was a lot, and now I'll happily turn it over to Becky.
Well, good evening, and thank you again for the opportunity to talk to you tonight. Now that Jennifer deep dived into the understanding of why insurance, right, matters and the different plans, it's really time to talk about how you can become a participating provider to start building your practice. In the next few slides, we'll be reviewing the credentialing and contracting process, and then the claims submission and payments. And I'm actually really excited about it too, because from that poll, I can see a lot of you, one, want to go into private practice. And it looks like you're towards the tail end of your education. So I'm really excited to go through this with you. And again, if you have questions, throw them in the chat, and happy to answer anything. So as we move on to the next slide, how a dentist joins a dental plan as an in-network provider. So what is CAQH? When you're ready to join a dental insurance plan as an in-network provider, one of the first steps you're going to want to do is manage your information through CAQH, which stands for Council for Affordability Quality Healthcare. So what exactly is CAQH? It's a centralized secure system where dentists store their credentials, such as your license, your education, your malpractice, insurance, and some of those other key documents that you have, to become credentialed. The nice part, I really want to emphasize this with your CAQH, is that instead of filling out paperwork, as Jen talked about becoming a carrier or a provider with other carriers, instead of filling out paperwork for each of your insurance companies separately, you can enter the information in CAQH and participate with multiple plans where they can access those documents in one place. So it's a one-stop shop, and it's administratively lessening the burden and streamlining the process for you. So just to give you a brief overview, really, of what CAQH credentialing enables you and your staff to do, is you can self-report electronically. Again, you can store those professional practice information in one user-friendly online source, right? So, and also, for example, if you were to go and you move to a different location, or you open another practice, that's another thing that you can do right on CAQH. You can attest that you've changed locations, make updates right there. It's all accessible to the carriers that you're currently participating with, or whoever you choose to. So it's, again, that one area where all of your information will be. You can complete your profile, and it's, again, shared with multiple carriers. There's also re-credentialing standards, which typically are every 2 to 3 years. And what you'll do is re-attest to that information that's in there during that re-cred process. Makes it very easy for you to just go ahead and get re-credentialed. And again, it can also allow you to share information common to other multiple practices locations where you're associated. The other great thing I just want to mention too, as you're going through and completing your CAQH, is during this time, if you do have concerns, they have great resources, and we can share this after the webinar. They have a quick reference guide, which is really helpful, and they also have a help desk. So we'll definitely make sure that those are available to you, because again, I think after this, and as you're getting ready to start the credentialing process, you might want to start looking at that. So I want to just go through what this looks like once you're done your CAQH and you're looking at in carriers and what you're going to need to do that. So once you're registered with the ADA credentialing service by CAQH, you're going to start with logging in and authorizing that insurance carrier, depending on what you decide, to receive your information. From there, you're going to ensure all your professional and practice information is current. Confirm that you're updated, all your documents are required. Again, do you have your DEA? Do you have your insurance? Do you have your license? They're going to have check marks and things where you're going to have to upload that information, and they'll check off in green as you upload them to make sure you have a complete profile. And again, the reattesting for accuracy and completeness of your credentials, again, they're going to ask for you to do that when you're completing the CAQH. A little bit of what is typically required in credentialing, just, from a Humana perspective too, and typically it's industry standard. All dentists applying will have to have that CAQH ID if you're going through CAQH. You're going to have your NPI, which is your dentist individual type 1. You will be assigned a recruitment code when you go through what carrier you want to provide that to. They'll give you an assignment recruitment code that you'll give to that particular insurance carrier. And you're going to also include your contact person for credentialing. That allows us, if we need additional information, to get a hold of that person. So their name, their telephone number, your email address, your address of your location, or if you have multiple. And then typically, and we'll go through this a little bit further down too, is your service agreement and a W-9 form. So let's move on to how a dentist joins in CMS and state regulations, right? So CMS establishes nationwide guidelines for providers credentialing and enrollment. Dentists must comply with these standards to participate in the federal programs. Jen mentioned Medicare and specifically Medicaid. You do have to be credentialed to those standards. Beyond the federal mandates, there are individual states, and you'll see that there's state mandated applications that will be required. And again, when you talk about Medicaid, those are at a state level. You will need to meet both the federal and state requirements to become credentialed. And if you fail that, it is going to delay and block your ability to join the networks. So given that, I think it's really important that you proceed with the CAQH and go through that again. It's a one-stop shop, and it's going to allow you, Jen talked about all these different plans, but if you're through CAQH and you have that information there, it's going to allow you to pick and choose the the plans that are going to work best for you, and there won't be any obstacles. So I want to move on to a little bit about, a misconception when we talk about credentialing versus contracting. So when it comes to joining a dental insurance plan, as we talked about in network, there are two major steps, right? I just talked about the credentialing process, which is through CAQH, right? You're going to want to go through the process with that through CAQH, and then you're going to need your legal business agreement, which is your service agreement. So the credentialing is through CAQH, and then your service agreement, which I talked about a little bit earlier as a bullet point, is that service agreement that's also going to be required. It's a binding agreement between you and the insurance carrier. Now, some of them have an individual agreement, or if you're in a group, you might have yourself as the owner, or you as an associate and the owner that will sign off on a group agreement, depending on what practice you join. One other thing I want to mention is they're usually an evergreen contract, meaning there are no end dates. There's usually an initial 1-year term on those agreements. And then after that, they just have no end date. The other thing I just wanted to point out too is typically there's a 90-day calendar prior written notice of termination. So you can typically in those agreements, and again, it's industry standard, usually you have 90 days to provide written notice of termination. And that 90-day window actually allows the patient to continue treatment until you term with that agreement. So the next piece, which I think is another, important part, and again, that poll you talked about, how do I get paid, right? So we talked a little bit about the credentialing and the contracting. So let's break down a little bit of the process for your claims and submission of claims, right? So what happens behind the scenes? So you're submitting a claim. The patient receives the treatment first. Then you're going to submit your claim either electronically or by mail. And we'll talk a little bit more about, you're receiving treatment and receiving your payment and streamlining that a little bit better, of course, electronic versus mail. If electronically, the dentist typically will use a clearinghouse. I know Dental Exchange is a big one that's out there. And what they'll do is typically they'll submit a batch of your claims, and you're given a payer ID from that insurance carrier, and they'll submit that file over to them to process for payment. A little bit of statistical information, auto adjudication, usually 70% of claims are auto adjudicated each year, or manually reviewed. On the Humana side, just to give you a little bit of feedback on us, we auto adjudicate almost 90% of our dental claims. So. And then I wanted to talk a little bit, and I think this will also help you, again, when we talk about payment and streamlining, the documentation, what's going to delay you getting the payment, right? So I think it's really important, and if you're looking to start your own practice, to have these cheat sheets and things that you help your administrative staff to streamline things and say, hey, if you're your person that's going to be submitting claims, give them a list of what the requirements are so that they're making sure they have everything documented so that when they submit the claim the first time, it's going to not, slow down the process for you getting paid, right, and things getting denied. So you'll see here just a list of things that we commonly see as an insurance carrier that are missing that delay the process for you getting paid, and also, things getting denied as incomplete. So missing or incomplete patient information, your lack of x-rays might be incorrect or outdated codes. So you want to make sure you have the latest and greatest list of ADA codes that when you're submitting the claim. Insufficient clinical documentation or narratives, you want to be very detailed and make sure that that's included if it's required in what you're submitting. Mismatched information between the claim and the patient record. Again, just making sure that you're checking that patient with their ID. Handwritten, again, nowadays you can get a claim submission form. And again, if you're going to use a dental vendor to submit electronically, obviously it wouldn't be handwritten. It's all fillable fields and it's a file, and you can quickly send it over to your clearinghouse and then get it over to us. So I think that alleviates it. And then most likely I would suggest that if you're going to go that route is electronically, is to go through electronic submission versus mail. And then failure to respond follow-up requests from your insurer. So I think you want to just make sure, when I talked a little bit too about making sure you have the most accurate information, if you have somebody that changes that's handling it, make sure that information gets updated with us as the carrier so that we know, if we don't get this information, where they can find it. But I do want to say a lot of these are preventable, you know what I mean? And having this documentation will help you from alleviating, lack of getting the payment and, processing it within a timely fashion. So, so next slide. We're going to talk about, and there's a lot on here, right? When you talk about electronic funds transfer, which is EFT versus paper check. So a lot of information on here, but I think I just want to, high level, what is the biggest frustration that we hear from dentists, right? Around payments, specifically it's how slow they get paid and how little control they feel they have over the process. However, a survey that we did last year found that dentists have more patient options, and I'm going to go through that with you because there's a lot of options out there. While many single practices feel comfortable using paper checks for payment, you do get paid faster, and I talked about that a little bit when you get the it administratively is streamlined things, right? If you're getting that electronic funds transfer, we call it EFT, right? So typically with the EFT, next day to 1 week, you're getting your payment versus a paper check could be 14 to 30 days. You want to think about the two from a paper versus EFT, and I'll talk about another great resource in a minute, is you want to see have they been denied. You don't want to wait in the mail to say, oh my gosh, I have to resubmit it, and you've waited 30 days. Now you're waiting another 30 days to correct the claim and then get paid. So overall, I think, for efficiency, streamlining administratively, going through that EFT process, I think is, the best way to do that. So they're faster, more reliable. You get your payments faster and it reduced manual processing, right? So the good news about claim submission, EFT, which we discussed, is a service called Availity. Availity is actually a self-serve platform, and it allows you to not spend that time calling the insurance carrier, waiting to speak to somebody. In return, it allows you to have not only streamline your practice, but gives you that additional time to provide quality of care and have that one-on-one time with your patients, right? So some of the benefits of Availity, it is a single platform. They have great resources for you to sign up with Availity. Humana is through Availity. There are a number of other carriers that use it. So actually, when you think about CAQH that I talked about a little bit earlier, Availity is the same thing. It's a resource and a platform for you to go in, create an account, and what that will do, you'll see, for particularly if you're participating with Humana, you can check the Humana's eligibility and their benefits. You can submit your claims. Again, I wouldn't suggest I would go through a clearinghouse when you have a bulk claim submission, but if you do, you can look at, hey, did I get a denial? That's another option through here. And you see that a claim got denied, it will allow you to, submit the claims. But it's at your discretion. If you have a couple claims and you want to do a couple a day, you could do that. But it allows you to not only submit your claims, but also, check the status of them. You get your EFT right through Availity. You can check your remittance advices that are attached to your payments. Jen talked a little bit about your DHMO and how that plan works. With the DHMO, she talked about assignment of your general dentist, and you'll see your rosters if you choose to participate in DHMO. And in addition to that, they also have some really great learning tutorials that, you can watch with your staff or helping them train. And again, have a ton of resources for you, questions. But this is also, again, another great piece. You talk at CQH with your credentialing. Availity is going to allow you to get claims faster, work on looking at your claims, looking at rosters, getting that payment, streamlining, the way that your practice is going to run. So now I wanted to look at a case study to look at kind of a real world example of how strong, the dental network is in the partnership. So a strong dental network partnership can enhance, obviously, both your patient care and provider satisfaction. So if you look at Jane Thompson, right, a dentist with a growing private practice, kind of like yourselves, right, as you get out of school, you might decide, hey, I want to join Humana Dental, hopefully. To expand the number of patients she was able to treat and streamline operations. So soon after she had treated a new patient who required a root canal, periodontal therapy, she had logged into what I talked about, the Availity, right? And she was able to not only verify the patient's coverage, but confirm their benefits. So what this did is allowed her, right, to provide optimal treatment for her, an optimal treatment plan for her patient and restoring the patient's oral health. So it's not only a way for you to also streamline, your practice, but it's the way that you're able to treat patients. Because I know being in a, clinical atmosphere, that's, I think, what's really important too, is being able to provide quality of care to your patients in addition to being able to streamline your practice. So I think the Availity portal that we talked about, CQH, these are all really great resources. Ton of support out there, like I said, that we could, happy to put that information out there for you after the webinar, but, some really great information. So thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Michelle.
Thank you, Becky. So I know that we shared a lot of information this evening. And so to recap the top takeaways, insurance matters. It shapes your patient base, your cash flow, and your operational efficiency. It's important to know your options. It's important to understand the differences between plans and plan smart. Evaluate networks based on demographics, the geographic reach, and the plan portfolio. Make sure that it's the right fit for you and the right fit for your practice. And ask the right questions before you sign any agreements. Ask about patient access, ask about reimbursement rates. Make sure, like, what's their administration ease? How are they going to support you? And then avoid payment delays. Like the facts that we gave you about how to avoid payment delays are really important. Every single plan that is out there has posted on their website like what they want or what they need, what they require when there's certain procedures that are done. Make sure that you know those so that when you do submit for a certain procedure, you know what supporting documents to submit. Again, all of these are just really important so that you get paid as quickly and as accurately as possible. And then use your resources, tap into evaluation tools when choosing which network to join. And thank you so much for allowing us to be here and to talk with you. It was a pleasure. And we are here. And we also enjoyed answering the questions in the chat.
Thank you again so much. We're nearly at the end of our session again. So if anyone has any other questions, just please drop them into the Q&A and we can answer them for you before we wrap up. I think there might be one in there right now. Ladies, if you'd like to answer that live, you're more than welcome to. And we'll see if we have any other questions that pop up.
I think there was a cost on Availity, right, Michelle? There's no cost to that.
No, I'm not
right?
aware.
Yeah, I'm not aware of one either. So yeah, I mean, it's a great resource for you to really, streamline your practice at no cost. So I highly suggest doing that when you start your practice.
Yeah, Humana pays a cost, but I'm not aware that a dental office pays a
Agreed.
cost.
Yeah, I think we pay as a carrier to
Mhm.
be on the portal. Yeah.
What about practices that offer their own memberships?
So like a membership plan, is that what we're talking about? Maybe they could pop that into the chat. Is it a reliable and effective strategy? So this would typically be related back to a discount plan. And yes,
Yes.
there are some DSOs, some large group DSOs that, you know, don't want to lose the business. So they'll create sort of an in-house dental plan, and that functions very similar to a discount plan. Some that is a viable strategy in some offices. Typically, it's viable when you have hundreds of practices, right, that offer this. But when you're in a smaller practice and offer that, doesn't help the member if they need to go out to see a specialist, doesn't help if their kid needs ortho, right, because it's just a discount plan to keep them in your office in particular. But it is a strategy out there. It is a strategy.
Right.
Thank you. So we'll leave it open just for a few more seconds to see if any last minute questions.
We did also include our, I think some QR codes, Chris, right? That they can reach out to us after as well, and our
Yes.
email addresses.
Yes, absolutely. So we will be sharing this webinar with attendees in about a week. It will be on the ASDA website. We'll also send all of the attendees an email with a link to this webinar so you're able to go back and check out all of these resources. Watch the video again. If you had any questions, you can reach out to our presenters. But again, you'll be able to find this on our website in about 1 week. So looks like we have one more question. If you don't mind, we'll just do this question really quickly since we do have a couple of minutes left. And this one is, how do we deal and communicate with insurance companies when they downgrade the TX procedure?
Yeah. So, so that can sometimes happen. So sometimes, or not sometimes, all the time, the insurance companies are paying the claim based on how the benefits were aligned by the employer. So we, as the insurance company, we have a contract with the company, like the employer, and that's the what we call the certificate of coverage, and that is how we have to pay the claim. So within that certificate of coverage, there is sometimes a policy. I don't know, Jennifer, Becky, tell me, that more or less says like the least expensive professionally accepted treatment is, I think, the wording that it is worded to. Oftentimes what that means is that if there's two ways of resolving a dental problem, then, and one way is submitted, then we will pay the lower way, and then the patient is responsible for the difference between the two procedure codes. So you have to look for that language within the CERT book. And I don't know, Jennifer, Becky, if you would agree with how I answer that.
I do. And we more often refer to it as an alternate benefit clause. So again, keep in mind, one of the things that I love to make sure we differentiate is that, and I'll speak on behalf of Humana and other carriers, right? We don't choose the plan that the patient has. So if they are, lucky enough to have an employer that provides a dental plan as an option for them, that employer group sits down with the carrier and most likely a third party, a consultant or a broker, and they figure out financially what kind of plan can we offer. And oftentimes there's this alternate benefit clause, right? So that there is a savings, so that it is an affordable option to offer, and you do get those. And the most famous that I kind of grew up with, and I've been around a really long time, was, hey, I did a composite. Why is it paid like an amalgam, right? Well, at that time, an amalgam was still considered by the ADA to be the most acceptable treatment.
Correct.
So on posterior teeth, right, we're now in the full craze of, everyone's using composites, right? They've just, the strength of them and all that stuff has really, really just improved so much in, the last 20, 30 years. So that can still be part of what we call an alternate benefit clause.
Right.
When that happens, the patient pays the difference between that lower benefit that the insurance kicks in for and the procedure you actually did. So you're not losing out because they, quote, downgraded. It is just an opportunity to educate the patient. Listen, your plan includes this alternate benefit. Therefore, I only do this, and I think this is what's best for you. So this will be your charge. So it's all about that communication with the patient and understanding why you're recommending those choices. Hopefully that gives you a little bit more detail, maybe too much.
Great. And we've got one more question. This is from Frank. How are we supposed to feel about X-rays getting covered every 3 to 5 years when the standard of care is much more frequent?
That kind of goes back to the same thing. If we have a clinical team. I don't know if every carrier, I can just speak on behalf of Humana, that we have an incredible clinical team. In fact, our clinical team is on like the code revision team with the ADA and is very involved with clinical guidelines. And they speak directly with dentists. We make our recommendations on plan design based off of what are the clinical guidelines. But again, oftentimes, as Jennifer said, different groups will purchase different types of plans based on what they can afford.
Right.
But know that we do have a clinical team of dentists that work closely with the ADA, and they are very aligned with what are the clinical guidelines. So you are going to find different things that are covered, like different levels of coverages based on the different plans, and that could be based on the different employer groups.
Right. And then the rest of it would be the member's responsibility for the patients, I should say. So.
And that's another thing though, Becky, right? Is don't let the coverage dictate what you feel is necessary.
Right.
That's
Right.
not the whatever is covered, that should not dictate what you feel is necessary.
Yeah. And at Jen's point, when we talk about fillings, right, we try to be mindful of that too. Like if it's something that's down coded and we know that the member is going to have to pay, the difference, we are mindful in our fee schedule looking at so that, it's still that the member can have the treatment and afford it, right? So we're very mindful of that as well. So.
Wonderful. Well, that was our last question of the evening. Thank you again. Again, we want to thank Humana for their sponsorship of this webinar. And again, the QR codes to reach the presenters are up on the screen. Again, if you'd like to view this webinar again, it will be posted on ASDA's YouTube channel and saved to our webinar directory on asdanet.org under programs and events and webinars. Again, we'd like to thank Humana for sponsoring, and we wish everyone a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for having us.